Second thing, I am not in love with Doom Eternal at all. It's got some great aspects, certainly more good than bad, and at the end of this video I will genuinely recommend it for a certain demographic of gamers, but I will not just be sucking this game's like I've seen so many other people doing over the past few days. It has some major flaws. End result, all of this combined, is that you very often need to get chainsaw kills to have any ammunition at all for anything.
Hello all and welcome to the channel. It's your pal Noms here. For those of you who don't know, this is my second channel and you can find me primarily on Anomaly Inc. So I suggest heading over there once you're done here on AI Gaming. You can probably guess what the AI stands for now. First off, I'm glad to see you've all taken the time out of your busy schedules from ripping and tearing to join me here today. We're going to have a chat, you and I, about Upper Echelon Gamers. It's a pretty well established YouTube channel, 380,000+ subscribers, and I'm guessing a lot of videos and a lot of good takes. However, based on what we're about to witness, you and I'm guessing they've dropped some massive turds in the past. This channel made a video about Doom Eternal that, well, it wasn't received well. It's called Doom Eternal, amazingly visceral, brutally flawed. Brutally flawed. Brutally is a bold word, buddy. Gotta say, I honestly thought he was trolling when he used that word to describe Doom Eternal's gameplay and campaign. Well, let's go ahead and check the like-dislike ratio.
Oh my sweet Jesus.
Yikes, 13,000 dislikes is impressive for a channel of 300,000 subscribers. The video got 5,000 likes, and I've been on YouTube long enough to know that many of those were, shall we say, unconditional likes. Viewers who will simply like out of good faith because of their adoration for their favorite YouTube channel. And yet, despite that, this video got way more dislikes. Many more people hated it than they liked it, and it's not hard to see why. Though in fairness, I will say this individual at Upper Echelon does have a lot of good things to say about the game. This isn't a very malicious video by any means. It doesn't infuriate you to the point of wanting to put your fist through the monitor. It's actually just hilariously incompetent. Doom players, myself included, watched this and just laughed at it hysterically. A lot of simple mistakes were made that could have and should have been fixed. Now, excluding some portions throughout the video, this video itself wasn't very malicious, spiteful, or purposefully antagonistic, and it leaves off on a very positive note regarding Doom Eternal. However, it's how Upper Echelon addressed the criticisms regarding his video that honestly infuriated me, and we will cover that at the end. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado,
let's go school this motherfucker.
Merch. We have a new shirt and it's super discounted already, plus another 15% off using code UE15%. So there's a link down below in the description. Two things right off the bat. One, because of the current shutdown, I've been unable to get certain critical components of my new PC layout, which meant I was operating on a one-screen setup and thus could not effectively stream Doom Eternal from PC. This caused me to play on console because I don't know how long before I can actually safely go out and get cord adapters or have them reliably shipped to me. And if that makes you upset, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is.
Why would that upset us? I'm sure plenty of the quote-unquote PC master race plays on console as well, or has in the past. Fun fact, I'm primarily a console peasant, but Doom Eternal was, fun fact, the first FPS new release I bought and played entirely on PC, and it was a blast. But I've reviewed numerous other games in the past, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Gears 5, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Never once was my review called into question because I played on console. So it just seems a little presumptuous of you is all.
Second thing, I am not in love with Doom Eternal at all.
I don't know, maybe get some therapy then?
It's got some great aspects, certainly more good than bad, and at the end of this video, I will genuinely recommend it for a certain demographic of gamers. Spoiler, I liked it enough to do that, and I'll explain thoroughly why in just a minute, but I will not just be sucking this game's dick like I've seen so many other people doing over the past few days.
Yeah, okay, that's probably not the best way to open up your review. Sure, many people give the game glowing praise, and rightfully so, but if you have a problem with it, maybe start cussing them out after you've made your point and have a leg to stand on.
It has some major flaws. It's honestly difficult for me to pick a real starting point, despite the fact it's an extremely linear game in and of itself. Describing it with a clean progression from start to finish, covering all aspects, feels like a nearly insurmountable task.
Extremely linear. Yeah, have you ever played Call of Duty, buddy? I'm not denying the linearity of Doom's missions. Don't get me wrong, but you should be a bit more specific instead of just throwing that label out there. Let me just take a small quote from the legendary George Lucas for a second.
It's stylistically designed to be that way, and you can't undo that, but we can diminish the effects of it.
The game is designed to be linear, but there are many aspects of the game that diminish the effects of its linearity. The huge sandbox to work with, and engaging every encounter how you see fit, the unique battle arenas you're placed in throughout the game's progression, the branching paths and secrets allowing you to have a level of exploration throughout the game, and not to mention the hub area, the Fortress of Doom, which gives you all the freedom you want.
The most logical place to start is narrative. There really isn't much to say about narrative other than I liked it, and that's worth noting when I find myself getting bored of most narrative games that I play. I will deliberately avoid spoilers at all costs here, but suffice it to say the narrative was interesting, well thought out, and best of all, contained an actual arc of goals and accomplishments. It's incredibly hard to say with any degree of certainty whether or not a subjective story will be appealing to other players. For instance, some people think Lord of the Rings is a bad story. That's not to compare Doom to Lord of the Rings, it's not even close to that caliber at all, but as far as video games go, I wasn't rolling my eyes, and that's saying something nowadays.
Yeah, I enjoyed the story too. It was pretty surface level, admittedly, but it gave the player just enough string to want to dig deeper into the lore and find the codexes for the characters, the worlds, and the events in the Doom timeline. You know, those things you can explore and find in this, quote, extremely linear game.
On top of a competent story is a world-class soundtrack. I say those words, world-class, with absolute sincerity here. Doom Eternal has an undeniably brilliant soundtrack, and much like narrative, but to an even greater extreme, soundtrack rarely impacts my enjoyment of a title. If the score is competent, that's plenty enough for me. If it isn't a flat-out detriment, it can usually just be relegated to the background and left out of the spotlight. But the soundtrack for Doom Eternal demands the spotlight.
Yeah, you guys thought I needed all that lube for just the gameplay?
I won't spend too long harping on it, but the ebb and flow of the music, punctuating the brutal, gory combat, is without a doubt some of the best integrated sound design I have heard in a game for years. Many years. It won't be everyone's cup of tea. Anyone who prefers meditation music or the soothing sound of waves on a beach might be thrown off a bit by the visceral tracks, but then again, Doom was never a game franchise for those who prefer mellow and easygoing themes. So, narrative and sound design, good and great, but now it's time for gameplay and progression.
This is where the fun begins.
This is where I will not just be singing praise for the title, because the truth is, despite a fantastic loop of basic combat, there are horribly designed aspects that destroy the pacing and ruin the overall flow of what is otherwise probably one of the best shooters to come out in many years.
Again, those are a bold choice of words. Horrible, destroy, and ruin. I certainly hope you can back it up.
The basic loop is actually pretty simple. Bounce from demon to demon, ripping their heads off or eviscerating them with cinematic glory kills to regain health, or disemboweling them with your chainsaw for ammo. This works really, really well in the early stages of the game.
You kind of forgot Flame Belch for armor, buddy? The 3 golden rules of Doom Eternal are Chainsaw for ammo, Glory Kill for health and for blood punch, and Flame Belch for armor. There was a whole tutorial about this, by the way.
As you progress, you are also unlocking various new weapons, some of which are ridiculously overpowered in the best possible way, but the further you go, the longer the individual rooms get, the more larger demons come out, and the harder it gets to enjoy the actual intended gameplay loop without points of severe tedium.
Yeah, the rooms get longer and harder and have more powerful demons thrown at you because the game is progressing and escalating. You get more weapons and tools along with way more enemy types to keep the gameplay dynamic and evolving, so that it doesn't get stale for the player. This is what I describe as great pacing, but I'll let you finish.
I'll try to summarize it as best I can, and anyone who plays for more than probably 6 or 8 hours will unfortunately figure out exactly what I mean here.
Well, you see, I've played Doom Eternal for at least 30 hours.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
So you better hope you are correct.
Because your ammo recharge is tied directly to chainsaw kills, and for some reason ammo pickups on the ground, especially in heavy combat rooms, are less than plentiful, you will need to be conserving chainsaw fuel for the right moments. However, because of how annoyingly long some of these fights are, especially when you get to the point where Marauders show up, but that's a whole separate topic I'll get to in a minute, you are going through ammo faster than you can get it back. On top of this, your ammo reserves and carry capacity without speccing heavily into certain upgrades are extremely low. And finally, when you use your chainsaw ability on a larger enemy, it consumes multiple fuel points. The end result, all of this combined, is that you very often need to get chainsaw kills to have any ammunition at all for any gun.
Okay, to be fair, I did encounter this problem in the first couple of hours in my first playthrough. But then as I kept playing, I realized that this design change was compensated for in numerous ways. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the heavy ammo limitations and the removal of the infinite ammo pistol, but I believe id Software removed the pistol in order to keep the gameplay flowing rather than hindering it. For example, if you ran out of ammo and had to fight a super or heavy demon in Doom 2016, you could always fight with the pistol and slowly whittle down their health. In Doom Eternal, however, they wanted to keep the game flowing, and to keep you cycling through your arsenal, and make sure whichever weapon you used was always viable. So they made the chainsaw a more casual weapon, in addition with replenishing fodder demons, so you could always circulate and chainsaw and get your ammo back. The ammo you receive replenishes every single weapon, and unlike Doom 2016 with the inclusion of the pistol, every weapon in Doom Eternal is viable and can be used to kill lower, heavy, and super heavy demons. Admittedly, it was a jarring design change, but one that the player can easily adjust to after playing for enough time and, reading the tutorial at the start of the game. But I'll get to that in a second.
And if you are stuck with 2 or 3 large enemies to kill, without enough fuel in the vicinity, it utterly and completely destroys the pacing of the game, as you dodge around trying to either grenade them to death over the span of several minutes, or somehow find scraps of resources with which to fight. It doesn't happen every single time, but when it does happen, it totally destroys the experience.
Except, no, that doesn't happen. id Software made sure that the chainsaw was always viable. You say you have to gather enough fuel to take down big enemies, and this is true, but you don't need to use the chainsaw on big enemies to get your ammo back. You can chainsaw any enemy to replenish your ammo, which is why fodder demons always replenish on the battlefield. Which is why, and again, this was in the bloody tutorial. The chainsaw automatically replenishes 1 pip of fuel, which enables you to kill 1 fodder demon, which infinitely respawn on the battlefield. The ammo dropped from chainsawing these fodder demons keeps your guns loaded and keeps the gameplay flowing.
You can't even read!
In addition to that, you can save up fuel to one-shot a powerful demon. But since the chainsaw is a core component for survival in Doom Eternal rather than a get-out-of-jail-free card like in Doom 2016, this is why id Software made the BFG available earlier on in the game, as well as the addition of the Crucible, another one-shot kill weapon, towards the end of the game to compensate for this sandbox change. I rarely ever chainsawed heavy demons because I use the chainsaw so frequently against fodder to replenish my ammo, which is how the game is meant to be played, you jackass.
This might not be an issue if you could simply carry more ammunition. The strange thing is, oftentimes in corridor areas between segments, there will be like half a dozen shotgun pickups, for example. But you can't carry even close to that, so you pick up one of them, go into the next phase area, run out in 30 seconds, and are back to square one.
Again, the ammo was reduced to balance out with the chainsaw being a more frequently used and viable weapon. Not to mention, that's what the Sentinel Crystals are for. You can upgrade your ammo capacity at your own pace, or you can upgrade health and armor. id Software allows you that choice as a player, despite you labeling this game as extremely linear.
Another exacerbating factor is wave-based combat. Pretty much all of your major encounters are just wave-based combat of the same enemies over and over in a single room. That's not to say that the combat isn't fun, because it is, and despite the fact there is a huge amount of enemy archetype repetition, they still feel just as good to glory kill as ever before.
Okay, first off, why did you just waltz into an Arachnotron with no chainsaw ammo? Not only did you do that, but you did so after dying and getting an extra life. And And not only that, but seconds prior to that, you flame belched and blood punched a fodder demon which you could have chainsawed to get your fucking ammo back, you utter brain stump. You essentially killed yourself. That's not bad game design. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were intentionally playing like a fool in order to falsely discredit this perfectly fine game to try and have the hot take, because everyone's looking for the hot take on YouTube. Just by that one clip, it's extremely evident that you have very little understanding of the game's mechanics before writing this review.
But the sheer number of waves, one after another, of the same enemies just spread out, gets horribly annoying. Here's an example. In one room, you might go up against 2 spider enemies, then 2 eyeball enemies, then 2 chargers, then 2 more spiders, then 2 more eyeballs. And by the end, you can't help but think, why didn't they just make it 3 waves instead of 5, where there are 4 spiders and 4 eyeballs just at the same time? So you can at least group them together and use the same rockets or sticky bombs or grenades to conserve ammo.
Okay, first of all, you say the majority of Doom's gameplay is wave-based combat, and you're not exactly wrong on that front, but come on, that's an extremely uncharitable way to label it. Doom's gameplay at its core is giving you a bunch of demons to fight against in an awesomely crafted arena to fight them in. As you progress, enemies keep spawning and you as the player need to circulate and explore the map, take note of your resources on the map and how to ration them, and in which order to use them as you fight hordes of demons until they're done spawning. Knowing the map of these arenas is key to your survival. Also, you say, why didn't they use 3 spiders and 3 eyeballs at the same time instead of a draw-out fight with multiple demon types fighting you at once? Well, I'll tell you, let's say hypothetically there were 4 eyeballs fighting me. Because each enemy has a huge weakness against a certain weapon type and mod, all I'd need to do is fire the shotgun sticky bomb once at each eyeball for an instant glory kill. Now on paper, that sounds very simplistic and boring as opposed to having a Baron of Hell chase you while getting fired at by a Mancubus as you're trying to shoot a sticky bomb at a Cacodemon in the sky. Do you see how that works? id Software mixes up the demons to provide different combat scenarios and test the player. And as we've previously discussed, you can always get some ammo back through chainsawing fodder demons.
And not literally fight the same enemies in the same room just 5 minutes apart. Another good example would be the introduction of a specific new enemy archetype in the campaign. The game sets this battle up really well, and then when it happens, it's very fun. On Ultra Nightmare, which is what I was playing on, it is also very challenging.
Whoa, hold up, rewind.
On Ultra Nightmare, which is what I was playing on,
Anybody else's bullshit detector just go off?
Ultra Nightmare difficulty. You played on Ultra Nightmare, the hardest difficulty with the hardest and most aggressive enemies, where you take the most damage and only have 1 life, despite you making it very clear you didn't understand the chainsaw mechanic and visibly died on screen. Oh jeez. You're playing on Ultra Violence, you toolbox, not Ultra Nightmare.
You can't even read!
Seriously, did you give any real thought as to why the Doom community was wiping their ass with this review of yours? Well, clearly you didn't, as you can see here, but we will come back to that at the end.
and then 5 seconds later they are like, oh surprise, haha, now fight 2 of the exact same enemy. It's not fun, it's not creative, it's kind of lazy and obnoxious.
Yeah, you're referring to the introduction of the Doom Hunter boss. This enemy type starts off as a boss battle, but then it becomes integrated as a super demon with the rest of the demon horde. This happens only 1 time throughout the game. You say it's not fun, and I absolutely disagree. It's an introduction to a new enemy type, working with fodder demons and then working in unison with another enemy of the same kind. That type of boss battle happens 1 time throughout the entirety of the campaign. 1 time. And you act like it's a deal breaker. The Gladiator, Marauder, Khanmaker, and Icon of Sin are the other boss battles, and they don't do this, so I don't see the problem. If you're trying to put Doom Eternal's boss repetition on par with, for example, Warden Eternal from Halo 5, then you're crazy. That was a repetitive, uncreative clusterfuck of a boss that soured everyone on it. Doom Eternal didn't do that.
The thing that really pushed me over the edge, though, were Marauders. Marauders are an elite enemy that is just awful, and I mean really, truly awful. At first, when you fight one as if it's a main boss, it's challenging and very fun, actually, but then they start showing up at the end of multi-wave rooms. Keep in mind, ammo trouble is a very real thing at this point. These Marauders either throw shockwaves at you from range, shoot you with a shotgun up close, or swing at you with an axe while at mid-range. The horrible part is that they also have a completely invulnerable red shield that they can pull out in a split second whenever they want, which effectively makes you waste what little ammo you have left, especially at the tail end of a multi-wave encounter, and if you die, you have to do the whole thing again.
Okay, I had an issue with the Marauders at first, until I played the game thoroughly enough, and I realized they have a very easy weakness to exploit. People say it grinds the gameplay to a halt, and I disagree. You can still circulate and kill every single demon enemy type, because the Marauder is meant to be a one-on-one fight. I approach it no differently than if I was getting chased by a Baron of Hell, for example. Just keep moving, wipe everyone out. Fighter demons prevent you from running out of super shotgun ammo, which the tutorial explicitly outlines as its weakness. And then finish it off one-on-one. That's not to say you can't fight the Marauder before the other demons are dead, but it simply requires a lot more of your attention and a lot more damage than most demons do, so it's ill-advised to do so. Let's go through a couple of options of how to approach this. I'll show you first how I traditionally dispatch a Marauder. I back off until it engages me in combat. Once its green eyes flash and it's in range, I use the super shotgun to stagger it. I take a step forward, shoot it again, and you can stagger it over and over and over. You can do this until it's vulnerable for a glory kill, and then you can finish it off. I know this sounds and looks like the beginner's method of how to take this enemy down, but I find it simple and effective nonetheless. It's all about staying mid-range while attacking, and staying distant to bait his attack and create an opening. Now let's look at how my friend E-Man Gameplay dispatches his Marauder. Now that excellent weapon swapping we saw on display is most likely the pro's way of taking down a Marauder. Different players of different skill levels can take down this enemy in different ways. But finally, I want to play a small clip from Under the Mayo, who made an excellent video regarding the Marauder as a boss fight, and as a mini-boss integration with the other demons, and how to deal with it.
The horrible part is that they also have a completely invulnerable red shield that they can pull out in a split second whenever they want, which effectively makes you waste what little ammo you have left.
It's not whenever they want. Yes, you'll learn quickly that if you shoot at him normally, he'll block you. But saying he pulls it out whenever he wants is trying to give the impression that the enemy is impossible to manage, which is crap. He very obviously blocks attacks that come from the front. He does not block everything. You can shoot rockets to his side and detonate them behind him. Same with grenades. You can sticky bomb his feet. So don't complain about wasting ammo when that's your fault, not his.
I've linked the full video down below. It is excellent. Check it out at your leisure. But yeah, to conclude this, there are many ways to dispatch a Marauder. Some methods are simply more practical than others. Saying otherwise is just plain ignorant of you. Or maybe you did know and just wanted to be a disingenuous prick.
These Marauders are also insanely fast, deal a ton of damage, and have a boatload of health. All of it combines to make an encounter that just sucks. I know some contrarian edgelords in the comment section will be like, well, you just need to do this and that and the other thing and blah blah, get good, scrub. Well,
You're goddamn right.
sure, whatever. But for the average player tackling this game, especially on ultra-violence difficulty, these Marauders can just totally kill your pacing, your enjoyment, and your overall experience.
Oh, it is ultra-violence difficulty. Okay, good. Ultra-violence difficulty confirmed, you guys. But wait, why would the average player choose ultra-violence difficulty? I'm a heavy first-person shooter player, but an average Doom player. And I chose to 100% on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty first, before playing on ultra-violent. And I got no problem admitting that if I had played it on ultra-violent difficulty first, I would have found it way too difficult on my first playthrough, especially if I was trying to learn the new mechanics and the gameplay changes, as well as mastering bosses. Now I'm 3 missions into my first ultra-violent playthrough, and because of my knowledge and experience with the gameplay, as well as knowing where the secrets are, where the extra lives are, and how to fight the bosses, I've only so far had game over twice. But otherwise, I'm comfortably progressing through the game. So it sounds to me like you simply bit off more than you can chew.
I found myself just rolling my eyes and wanting to quit when a Marauder would show up after like 5 previous waves of enemies.
Quit? Did he just say quit? Quit, Doom? Obviously you ignored the opening cutscene to this game.
Rip and tear until it is done.
You can't even read!
Keep in mind, these previous enemy waves were not easy. They were not impossible, but they were definitely not easy to do. And then this cheesy, ammo-wasting Marauder steps in, and I seriously could not think of anything I wanted to be doing less in the entire world than fighting that enemy archetype.
Well, here's an idea. Don't waste your ammo on the prick. Time your shots. Seize the opportunity when it comes. You do realize that if you shoot the Marauder in the shield, he will summon his dog to kill you, right? It's not random.
First of all, the statement that his dog spawns if you don't engage him enough is a flat out lie. His dog only spawns if he's blocking fire with his shield. You can run around for days and the dog will never spawn if you don't hit his shield. The dog is your punishment for wasting your ammo, though he will occasionally spawn the dog if he blocks fire from another enemy.
But despite that, if you paid attention when the boss was first introduced, you would know how to shoot it, and where it is vulnerable. You obviously didn't.
This might not have mattered as much if half the game was not very simple wave-based combat just in the next room over and over. There is very little deviation from that formula, and the other half is platforming and puzzle mechanics to get to the next wave-based room.
Doom isn't simply wave-based combat, it's about movement. You are moving around an arena where you are exterminating demons until the demon presence is gone, and you can advance. There's some corridor shooting and platforming to get to these arenas you fight in, but it's not simple wave-based combat. That would be like Halo Firefight or Gears of War Horde mode, where the enemies are just thrown at you. Doom's combat encounters have been carefully crafted for the player's progression up till that point. What weapons and abilities you have, and don't have. Also, you don't just use platforming to progress through the level, but in the combat scenarios themselves. Dodging projectiles, swinging to higher ground, jumping and dashing from lift to lift. So how's about you pull your head out of your ass and stop trying to paint this game as bleak as possible?
Now, oddly enough, contrary to what I've seen from a few other creators, I actually liked the platforming in a lot of instances. I never really found myself struggling to find the next area to jump to. It might take a little bit of time, but I always got there, and then it was reasonably difficult while not feeling impossible to do so. There is quite a bit of platforming, wall jumping, and timed air dashing to get from place to place, but at least for me, that wasn't really a low point. It certainly wasn't a high point for the game, but it felt very obvious that a good amount of work had been put into these mechanics.
I'm kind of indifferent about it. I found some of it to be annoying, but on the whole, I'd be lying if I said soaring through the air didn't make playing as the Slayer feel twice as badass.
And when more often than not I felt myself just organically gravitating towards the right path forward subconsciously, it became clear that there is some high quality design work under the surface which is making that happen. Now for progression. I am a sucker for progression and customization in almost any game that I play, and because of that I was excited at first when I saw the many systems in Doom Eternal. However, that excitement was short-lived. There are a number of different progression avenues, and each of them certainly does have powerful bonuses, but it just felt cluttered. It felt almost like complexity for the sake of complexity, subtracting from the value of actually finding any given secret or special unlock.
Okay, do tell.
There are weapon mods and then weapon points, which further customize the mods. There are Praetor coins, which have a sort of strange wheel of upgrades for the environment, movement, and your grenades. Then there's runes, which unlock perks or talents, whatever you want to call them. Then other runes, I don't even actually remember the names of those items off the top of my head, to be completely honest, but...
Yeah, those are Sentinel crystals, dummy. They give you more ammo, which you previously bitched about, as well as health and armor. And yeah, Praetor points give you suit upgrades, as well as grenade upgrades. Weapon mods allow you to exploit enemy weaknesses, and all of the secrets that aren't cosmetics lend to this progression. The progression in arsenal, suit, and base attributes is paramount to success, especially in high difficulties, so what's your problem exactly?
There's another set of unlockables that augment health, armor, and certain abilities when paired up, and then there is your fortress, which has various items and doors that get unlocked with batteries. All of these things can have a definite tangible impact on character power, but when so much of the core gameplay loop can be boiled down to getting glory kills to recharge health, especially on harder difficulties, you have to be doing this constantly, and chainsaw kills for ammo, of which you run out way too often, most of these perk upgrades and wheel upgrades and weapon mods really aren't going to help you.
Yeah, good luck with that. As a matter of fact, my first rookie run on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty, I completed and I found it very challenging, but I was actually unaware of the mastery mods for each weapon type. I upgraded my weapons to be sure, but I didn't max some of them out, some of which that could have really helped me along the way. Several of these mastery mods would have made my playthrough so much easier, as well as certain boss fights, particularly the flaming meat hook super shotgun attachment. While the game is able to be completed without upgrading everything, saying the progression doesn't really help you out is asinine.
For instance, some guns kill enemies that you need for glory kills too quickly, or in a strange pattern where one shot won't always stagger them, but 2 shots will kill them outright. There seems to be an emphasis placed on weapon swapping for the right purpose. One weapon for weak points, another for destroying shields, etc, etc. They each have a unique individual use.
Yes, each weapon works best against a certain enemy. Each mod serves a purpose and exploits a specific weakness for a particular enemy type, but all the guns are viable to kill with. What's your point?
And that is aided by a system of slowed down time in the weapon swap wheel, but that time slow takes an uncomfortably long duration to kick in, and on higher difficulties that can mean the difference between life and death. When you need to be switching weapons so often, whether for utility or just because you are constantly running out of ammo, which happens all the time, those small bits of time really do add up.
I found the weapon wheel to be fine on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty, and less so on Ultra Violence, but still manageable. But I was playing with a controller, perhaps on the keyboard and mouse, the weapon wheel is more easily manageable, swapping weapons quicker with key bindings perhaps. However, there is a mechanic where you can swap to and from your most recent 2 weapons, which is what I mostly use, depending on the scenario I was placed into. My go-tos were the super shotgun and the plasma rifle, and I mainly swapped to the others for super demons that required heavy weaponry or a specific weapon mod.
Now, another thing worth talking about is how the pacing changes with different difficulties. I won't deny that the best satisfaction comes from a difficulty like Ultra Violence, which is what I mostly played on, but I also find it worth mentioning that when I eventually swapped to a lower difficulty, just to see how that felt and how the enemies would change, etc.
Again, you had only a chainsaw left and you ran straight into 2 heavy demons. Fucking retarded.
It allowed me to play very differently. On harder difficulties, you are constantly dodging, non-stop. Dash, 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 glory kill one enemy as fast as you can to recharge, then dash, dash, dash again to avoid damage. The game sometimes becomes a long, drawn-out hide-and-seek encounter, picking off one enemy at a time, but never really going toe-to-toe with anything. Later on, that changes a bit and you start to kill much faster, but still this idea that you are always the one having to dodge and run never really goes away. However, on lower difficulties, when you can actually spend the time firing off more consecutive rockets or running through burning ground without worrying too much to blood punch a large enemy and destroy all of its armor, that is a distinctly different feeling. Better or worse, that's up to the individual, each individual gamer or player, but harder difficulties change quite a bit about how you approach the combat.
Harder difficulties mean you have to play more carefully?
No. Do you think?
Interspersed throughout the world are various secrets and collectibles. I myself did not go for a 100% completion run. I found a decent number of them certainly, but I was more focused on the combat and character progression. However, among these secrets and collectibles are the Slayer Gates, and Slayer Gates are definitely worth discussing. Slayer Gates are sometimes tricky to open, having to find their key with a jump puzzle or something like that, but once you do, it is a high-octane horde of enemies that will rival any other encounter in the game. At its core, it's yet another room of wave-based combat, but the ultimate reward from Slayer Gates will be a uniquely powerful weapon that feels worthy of the effort. However, being totally honest here, while the reward weapon is fun, it feels a bit strange that its counterpart, unlocked through normal campaign gameplay, is actually far more powerful, with faster clear speeds and easier far-reaching destruction.
I'll agree with you there. I wish you got to unlock the Unmaker earlier, or perhaps if they let us use the Empyrean keys to unlock the BFG instead. But the BFG was integral to the story and events going on in Doom Eternal, so I guess that's an explanation. The Unmaker's a fun weapon, no doubt, but I found I barely got to use it before the end of the game, and I much preferred the BFG as a whole anyway. They're both fun guns to use, I just wish we unlocked the Unmaker sooner.
Alongside Slayer Gates and smaller insignificant collectibles, unless you are chasing all aspects of the lore, in which case you will probably enjoy them quite a bit, there are secret encounters. The secret encounters are very hit or miss. I found one that was super enjoyable, with exploding cue ball enemies and a horde of smaller imps to tear apart, but then I found one with, go figure, a Marauder that you had to kill in like 30 or 40 seconds, I'm not sure, I don't remember. It became clear to me almost immediately that this was a horribly designed encounter that would destroy my sanity and be nearly impossible to complete without cheesing or glitching. Exploration and searching for collectibles can be fun, but I found that it came secondary to main objectives, at least for me, especially because of how my experience with secret encounters had soured my impression of their balancing.
Yeah, some of the secret encounters are ridiculous, and others are quite fun. The game makes it clear, however, that these are optional, and the player needs to be aware of the consequences and proceed at their own peril.
I really didn't have any faith in them anymore to be fun. For those who want every last scrap of value, there are endgame style missions with changing dynamics, there is a Dark Souls style invasion mode.
Yeah, sounds fucking awesome, just like the rest of this game.
And there are plenty of secret puzzles and areas to uncover. If you want to get over 100 hours here, it's probably possible to do. But for the basic experience, start to finish, you're looking at around maybe 15 to 20 hours depending on difficulty. Overall, there is a very arcadey feeling to it. The platforming, the repeated instant dashes, the rainbow colors for ammo pickups after chainsaw kills, it's got a very distinct atmosphere. Not all players will enjoy that part, but personally I didn't mind it at all.
Well, I should hope so, because that's a core fundamental of what makes Doom unique. It's simple and arcadey, but engaging nonetheless.
All weighed against each other, the good was greater than the bad. The fun overpowered the tedium, and when asked whether or not I recommend Doom Eternal, the answer is yes, I do. However, I want to make it clear, this was a review of the single player portion of the game. I fully plan to play the multiplayer mode and see what the game is like from that perspective as well, but I'm not entirely sure if it will be something I produce a dedicated review for. If it feels necessary, I will, but nothing is guaranteed on that front as of right now. Also, worth mentioning, the game does not have predatory monetization, which is a good thing, to be sure, but I'm trying to get away from praising games just because they do something they already should be doing. Not having predatory monetization honestly should be expected. It is supposed to be the norm. We shouldn't have to be grateful when it happens. That's like being grateful your accountant doesn't commit tax fraud. It really is supposed to be normal.
Absolutely, totally agree on that front. Bravo.
And expected instead of uncommon. But that's it. I try not to give games a numerical score out of 10 anymore, but if I really had to, I'd say lop a point or two off the mainstream reviewers, because for some reason they went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on this one. Some people are throwing around 9.5 or 9, and I'm landing on more of an 8. Plus or minus a little bit depending on your history with the franchise and your opinion on the atmosphere and platforming.
Let's pretend for a moment that this game is an 8 out of 10 as you say. An 8 is still a pretty amazing game. Does an 8 constitute the label of brutally flawed? It's your metric, you tell me, because not only were your points garbage and your lack of understanding of basic mechanics embarrassing, but your gameplay was trash. And your reasons for shitting on this 9.5 or 10 out of 10 game were invalid. But your labeling for this game, you seem to mostly praise anyway, just comes across as an overly antagonistic cry for attention or an attempt to trick people into thinking you have the hot take on this one, which you don't.
But yeah, if you want to support, there are links down below. Also, please support Axial GT. He is the one responsible.
Okay, I think we're done here. Now, this was going to be the end of the video, but there's something more, I'm afraid. Like I said before, I wasn't infuriated at this video so much as I was just astounded by how hilariously incompetent it was. But shortly after posting this video, Upper Echelon Games pinned this comment in response to the negative backlash. He says, "Edit, here come the fanboys. You should be doing this though. You should be playing like that though. The game tells you this, so you're wrong. I did it like that, so you're bad." Same thing happened with Red Dead 2 Online, Fallout 76, Anthem, Division 2, PvP. I'm used to it. Where are all the fans of those games now? I say on multiple occasions how many things I loved, but that's not what the ears heard. Half the comments will inevitably become rehashed points that are in direct contradiction to the things I've literally said. But they don't listen. Fanboys are a fucking disease. Now, fanboys do certainly exist for various franchises. I'll even go out on a limb and outline a group I am not fond of, which pertains to my favorite video game franchise, Halo, and the Bungie Halo 3 purist elitist group that seems to infest the fanbase. I find them to be a massive circle jerk online, extremely frustrating to listen to, obnoxious, insufferable, and extremely difficult to have a conversation or civilized debate with. Now that's a separate discussion entirely, but if your video gets criticized to this degree, and there are multiple videos being made that show objective mistakes in your review, as well as a plethora of constructive criticism from comments and 13,000 dislikes, which far exceed the people who actually liked this video, then maybe you should take a look at yourself rather than pointing the finger at everyone else. What Upper Echelon is doing here is painting the opposition in an extremely negative light, so that his audience will pay them no mind and still accept his perspective factually without giving any scrutiny or buying into the vocal criticism surrounding the video. Now, he insists the majority of these comments are fanboys. Well, let's check out some of the top comments on his video, shall we? Shinto Pig says, complains about not having ammunition, has chainsaw fuel during the entire video, never uses it on fodder demons, glory kills everything. Yep, that summed up his errors in a nutshell. Well done. Chris Claypool says, the average player is not meant to play on Nightmare, especially at first. Again, Upper Echelon was unclear on what difficulty he was playing on. He mistakenly said Ultra Nightmare, which was laughable, when in actuality he was playing on Ultra Violence. But that's still stupid of him to do as a casual Doom player. Well done, Chris. Next we get to my boy Allard here. Well, you kinda walked into this one. PC Ultra Violence player here. The game keeps spawning basic scrub zombies in combat areas, and sometimes outside. Imps and zombie soldiers, all of which cost 1 unit of chainsaw fuel to murderize and can be put into a glory kill ready state in 2 good heavy cannon shots, or 1 bad single shotgun shot. Whenever I was fighting a Marauder, the game kept spawning those scrubs with an express purpose of giving me the chance to get some ammo back, as well as health and armor. You also neglected to mention that the Flamer gives you armor, which unlike older Doom games, protects all of your health, and the upgraded ice grenade lends health. Ice a bunch of weaklings, flame them, chainsaw one, followed by a super shotgun to the rest, and you're swimming in health and armor and have enough ammo too. Not to mention that the flamer, the grenades, and the chainsaw all regenerate, so you're never out of options. Now, trying to chainsaw heavier enemies is quite a waste, and you know, hard difficulties are hard. I don't think an average non-Doom fan player should go with Ultra Violence. Not their first time round anyhow, let alone Ultra Nightmare. Normal difficulty settings are called that for a reason. And dismissing anyone who points that out with fanboys, well, I think you can be better than this, to be honest. Spot on, dude, you pretty much nailed it. Now we come to Rinky. Or Rink, I'm not sure. As a staple of average gaming myself, I think you missed a tutorial screen. You know 1 pip of fuel recharges and fodder enemies spawn infinitely, right? Yes indeed, he absolutely missed the tutorial, wanting to pump out a review, or rather shit out one, as quickly as possible. Finally we come to La Home Baguettes. Conserving chainsaw fuel. Dude, it regenerates the first pip over time. Sure, if you want to chainsaw a big demon, you gotta conserve it, but there's plenty of weak guys that you only need 1 pip to chainsaw. I found the best thing to do is to save the pickups in the arena for after the fight so you can restock for the next one. I reject your assertion that this is an issue. You just misunderstood, or perhaps misapplied, the mechanics. One thing you failed to credit the game for that I find worth mentioning is that it never feels like you died for no reason. There's this meta process of trying a fight, failing, and learning from your mistake. Failing a fight in Doom Eternal leaves that what if I had done this instead feeling, rather than the this is bullshit, it's not my fault feeling. Bravo, man. Well done. Well said. That's an excellent summary of Doom's gameplay and how rewarding it feels to progress through combat scenarios. These are some of the top comments on your video. Do these sound like fanboys to you? No. So pull your head out of your ass, acknowledge your mistake, stop putting yourself on a fucking pedestal, and grow the fuck up. You got 300,000 people watching. Fucking act like it. Show some fucking professionalism. Your response to constructive criticism and the rightful frustration with your incompetence is quite frankly embarrassing. Doom Eternal is a fantastic 9.5 or 10 out of 10 game that has more than earned its praise. The brutal flaws with this game come down to your piss poor understanding of the most fundamental mechanics. You got a big community, I presume, many of which are Doom players. Try reaching out to them the next time you want to review a game you don't give half a shit about, because they will have the answers. In the future, show some more respect towards the art you criticize and maybe learn some fucking humility. Like Griffin Gaming, for example. Remember the video I showed from Under the Mayo explaining to people how to fight the Marauder? Well, Griffin was one of the people he constructively criticized in that video. So how about we take a look at the pinned comment on Under the Mayo's video? Oh, it's Griffin Gaming. Appreciating the criticism, taking it to heart, and complimenting the very video that was criticizing him. How about that? Upper Echelon gamers. You claim to be, well, the Upper Echelon. Some point of authority on gaming? So how about you stop acting like the lowest common denominator? Right, well that pretty much brings us to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Apologies it took so long. Hope you enjoyed the video and consider sticking around. You can probably expect this style of content going forward, as well as other videos about various games I'm enthusiastic about. And I hope to see you on my primary channel as well. I suggest you head over there once this is done so you know how I like to do my videos, but this is a pretty good representation of my content. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate your support. Again, because this is on my second channel, monetization for this video is still not enabled as of uploading it. So if you'd like to support my work going forward and would like to see more, consider donating to the Patreon. Even if it's just $1 per month, it goes a long way in supporting creators like myself. Special thanks to E-Man Gameplay for his assistance with this video response. I've linked his channel below, check him out. He is a master of memes and a fellow ripper and terror. And in addition to that, you can find me and E-Man on this channel's Discord server. Now, unlike the Discord for my main channel, this one is still relatively new, but talks exclusively about gaming. Various different franchises, gaming news, and gaming on YouTube. Matter of fact, it's through that Discord that I became aware of UEG's video. Shout out to my friend Curbboy for making me aware of it. Hope to see you all on the Discord. Who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Right, now with all that said, here's one last thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend, and here's to another good sesh.